Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris May. I am the open source solutions advocate at Sangoma. I started last year. This is my presentation on updates from the Asterisk Project. This is my first ClueCon. I'm very pleased to be here. Hope to meet everyone as the conference proceeds. And my mouse will cooperate. Oh, here we are, an agenda. Talk a little bit about myself and Sangoma, some updates in the past recently from the Asterisk Project, what's happened today, and what is happening in the future. So, before joining Sangoma as the open source solution advocate last year, I worked for about 20 years as an entrepreneur in the mostly small, medium business space as a VoIP consultant. Number of systems that I put together involving Asterisk, a couple of FreeSWITCH here and there. As a Digium certified Asterisk professional since 2011. There's some of my social media handles there. I recently joined the VoIP team, the Debian VoIP team, so really great to talk to anybody about Debian and VoIP projects on there after my talk. A couple other social medias there. I'm quite active on the Asterisk and also leaning into the free PBX forums at Penguin PBX. And I'm too far from the Bluetooth. There we are. So a little bit about Sangoma and some of the open source innovation there. We provide, of course, leadership and engineering for the Asterisk and Free PBX projects. A number of the core engineers from both Asterisk and Free PBX are Sangoma employees. Lots of good crosstalk there. We present an AsteriskCon conference, the annual Asterisk conference every year. Spend in the spring the past few years down in Florida, so if you like warm weather like this and get out of the cold for everyone up north, it's a great place to be. Exact location TBD, we'll have more on that soon. We do offer on-prem, cloud, and hybrid solutions. Sangoma is one of the few companies that does that. We have a number of different pieces of equipment to meet those needs and also support training and SLA contracts. A little bit about some of Sangoma's telephony hardware. Of course, you may be familiar that Sangoma makes phones. Sangoma makes cards. This is one I was not too familiar with, a BRI card. Someone asked me at the Debian conference last month whether or not Sangoma had any BRI cards. I had to double check, and we do. I'm mostly in the PRI T1 world, which still a great opportunity to use a lot of those out there in the wild, but this is what one of them looks like. It's a great way to isolate your network from the internet generally. If you'd like to have your VoIP system connected over something like fiber coming in to an SBC, handing off a T1 to this kind of a card in a box, and then from there, quality VLANs and switches, you can completely isolate that IP network from the larger, more dangerous internet at large, perhaps. So where do you put them? In a box like this? Sangoma makes boxes to put your cards in, of course. These are some free PBX models here. Work quite a bit with those on the software. I've been working a lot. You can see me at my desktop at home working on the free PBX 17 ISO, which is a distribution based on Debian. It's an Ansible role now that rips open the standard stock Debian ISO, inserts a bunch of spray paint like this, and the free PBX logos, and a nice installer menu. You can see Tango, the tree frog, our mascot. In the bottom corner there, you can see another mascot. Talk about him in just a minute, with some similar eyes as the Sigmund I realized here. And that is basically your standard Debian installer that does a lot of nice partitioning things, uses a lot of Debian pre-seeding to speed up installation, so in just a few clicks, you're up and running with a free PBX system. Now, I know this talk is about Asterisk, but last slide here on the free PBX. This is a little, kind of a new idea in the Debian installer, working to get this in all the 1,001 ways to install Debian, but it's generating passwords on the fly during startup, so during installation. This is something you see on a web browser. Pretty common on your phone to have it suggest a password. So this is just a little bit further down the stack. So that's a couple screenshots there. There is the Asterisk mascot kit. That is short from telephony, a toolkit for telephony applications. That's what Asterisk is. I did add the animation in there, but lots of different little bubbles we put inside. So there's Kit. All right, what's happened in the not too distant past with Asterisk? Well, first of all, happy birthday to FreeSWITCH, 20 years. Asterisk celebrated 25 years last year at the Champagne Toast down at AsteriskCon in Florida. One big change, we switched from mailing lists to a community forum. So there's only one mailing list left for the development purposes. Most everything else is moved to discourse-based forum. One of the moderators there can help if you have any questions, community.asterisk.org. We also have a similar forum for FreePBX. Has definitely seen an increase in usage since last year. Big move to GitHub a couple of years ago. Our security policy reporting improved. We now have repositories for the test suites, lots of samples, feature requests, documentation, and continuous integration. So I'll focus on documentation for a couple of slides. It's output to docs.asterisk.org. It's a markdown type format. We definitely have some real thorough documentation, had a lot of updates in Asterisk itself. What that looks like, you can kind of see here, we've added a new feature, since, so you can find Asterisk been around for 25 years. So, these projects with longevity, it's nice to know when a feature, a new application was added. That's something that went on recently. Highlighting here the removal of a macro application, which is gone in Asterisk 21, and would switch over to GoSub. So if you have any macro calls, it's a pretty simple switch over to, I shouldn't say simple. It's actually quite complicated if you just walked in the room and I said the word simple, but over to GoSub. So if you have any macros, you're going to want, if you want to update to the latest version of Asterisk, you're going to have to rewrite those. But there's lots of good ways, information on the documentation about that. So ChanSIP, of course, been around since the RFC came out, I think in 2002. It was a pretty core part of Asterisk. We switched over to ChanPJSIP. It's still SIP, but it's now the only way to do SIP in core Asterisk, as ChanSIP was removed in Asterisk 21 a couple of years ago. You can get more info on the PJSIP project on its GitHub. PJSIP designed for UAs, but Asterisk being a back-to-back UA, it's a pretty good fit, some different compile options, but overall it's been a lot of positive back and forth development, bug fixes and features between Asterisk and PJSIP. Talk about a few AI. This is my AI slide. It's required to have at least one AI slide, I think, in all your presentations. Of course, Asterisk has been a toolkit for AI before it was cool. Nowadays, we call automatic speech recognition AI, and text-to-speech is called AI, but Asterisk has been doing that for many, many years. A couple of new ways to do it. We've made some changes in the mix monitor. Now is mix monitor application. And we added a stereo option about 6-8 months ago with a big D so that you can more accurately called interleaved audio perhaps, so that you can do a lot better transcriptions when you feed those to AI models if the caller and callee are on separate channels. ChanSpy was one way to feed audio out to AIs. There's a newer way with the Asterisk REST interface. Talk about that in a minute, using Snoop. So Spy went to Snoop, if you think about it that way. Audio sockets, that's a TCP audio method to get audio out. There's been lots of community contribution on various GitHubs about that, interfacing with a lot of different models. So there's some of the ways to get your audio out of Asterisk and over to an AI system to process, and vice versa. Here are some remove modules from Asterisk 21. Show of hands if anyone's using these. All right. Okay, no hands. That's oh, well, there's one hand. All right. It went down fast. All right. So, time to update. This one, they are gone. So if this is holding you back, you might want to take a look at this list on the next page. Asterisk 19. Now, there's a lot more here that you may be familiar with. If you're using any of these were some of the modules that were removed in Asterisk 19. So that's what's happened recently. Not going back too far. So where are we today? Well, there's 4 supported versions of Asterisk. There's 3 long-term supported releases and 1 standard. 18 goes EOL in a couple of months, so time to get up and update off that. 22 came out in October of last year. Lots of individual contributors, thanks. A little bit more about the releases. So what makes it a long-term support release is that it's about 5-year cycle. This is an example. So Asterisk 22 came out last year. That should be good to go with security fixes as well until 2029. So pretty solid platform to build on. PID flow is not a new dance move or an EDM band. It is a standard for geolocation for emergencies. Been working with this quite a bit. Sometimes you hear words like NINA thrown around, NG 911. There's also a European next generation 112. So this is just basically the way to get the ambulance to the location. So a lot of these on-prem systems, you know, schools, hotels, everyone's got a phone there. Makes a lot of sense, right? When the call doesn't have to boomerang around the internet to go from one room to the other. I think for these purposes, I would really like to see as a kind of a new idea and a new thought that seems to be catching on is the idea of putting more conference calling in these systems. So encourage any more application developers to consider that. A lot of times, you know, you have like a private security company that's already available, or you have trained staff that know what the building layout is, and instead of calling a 911 basically almost a call center now and having to repeat a lot of information, and that might just be a call handler who is handing it off to the actual emergency responder, you should be looping in somebody in the local security team as quickly as possible so that they can render aid and be on that call and actually talking to the caller and the callee and helping coordinate that response. So it is XML on the wire in PID flow, but we keep it human readable for configuration purposes. So that's a little tongue out for the XML fans and the FreeSWITCH audience here. Anyhow, we talk about location reference and refinement are some of the ideas so we can narrow it down and pepper these things in like a standard INI file, and then that gets generated to XML on the fly. So great way to test this is 933, Sangoma's wholesale carrier services. You can call that number, and someone's calling it right now, and you can get back a readout of your civic address if it's loaded incorrectly. And if it's not, it'll tell you that there's a problem, and when you do actually call 911, it's not going to have the correct address. So that's a big issue to be concerned about. Here's another new feature. Bit of a feature test chicken egg problem. So, you know, you're adding a great new feature. Of course, you should be testing it, but now we have a separate test suite, and so you need to add a test to the test suite. But the test is going to fail without that feature, so you kind of can't add the test before the feature. So now there's a solution. If you've looked at the Asterisk code on GitHub, you may notice we do something along the lines for cherry picking for different branches that you can say that I want this pull request to apply to. You can also now do this for your tests. So in the Asterisk PR comment, this is just in the past 3 to 6 months, you can go ahead and add a test suite, test PR code, and pick test 42, for example, if that's the pull request in your test suite. Stir shaken, something kind of new. This has been, of course, going on for a few years now, but there's been lots of real-world testing in Asterisk. We do support identity headers and signing those, as well as reading those in when they come in from a provider, and then exposing that in the dial plan. And there's a webinar last year about that, if you're interested, about signing your calls and attestation. But it allows you the ability to pop up something that says probable spam on your phone when you're receiving these calls. So I'll stand a little closer for my signal. So what's coming up in the Asterisk project? Well, WebSockets. Lots of things moving to WebSockets. So although Asterisk was a great platform as it was for AI, we've made some improvements to try to make things a little bit easier. In the past, WebSockets it was only for inbound connections from external applications. And now what we've done is set up outbound WebSockets. There's 2 ways to do it. Persistent, Asterisk starts up, makes the outbound connection to your WebSocket server, does some things, or on a per call basis. So if you use something like a round robin DNS, you can do some load balancing on a per call basis when you're connecting out to WebSockets. And we also put request response and events all in the same WebSocket. Lots of examples in the Asterisk WebSocket examples repository that was updated in the past couple of months. Also on WebSockets, external media. So there's a new CHAN WebSocket. You can actually just dial out to a WebSocket now as if it were another channel. It shares the same configuration with the ARA outbound WebSockets. Those examples are in the same place, the Asterisk WebSockets examples repository. 2 caveats here. You shouldn't use the same WebSocket for both ARI and media, so keep the binary separate. And you should only be using a per call for the media and not persistent, because you want to send the media to separate places, right? Not mix it all up into one. All right, my favorite part of the presentation here, this is the alternate channel storage backend roundup. So, you know, Asterisk has been around for a number of years. We have some data structures that are showing their age. One of the problems in Asterisk in the past has been some deadlocks surrounding this particular data structure. It's an AO2 hash container for keeping track of all the channels. So if you want to go in and look for a particular channel, either by the name or by the unique ID, you're going to be accessing this data structure. A lot of times this would happen in like a masquerade situation. So that's if you're doing like some sort of call pickup. A lot of that's been optimized out. There aren't too many left of those. It's actually getting harder to find where the masquerades are happening. But it's still something that affects performance, and so we took a look at it. It's a quote from George Joseph, one of the core Asterisk engineers who's worked quite a bit on this, and these are a number of his test results I'm going to highlight here. So what's it look like? Well, 7 contenders in the alternative channel storage backend roundup. The legacy, the 20-year-old hash container I mentioned in 0. A little bit optimized version with multiple readers and a single writer instead of just a single reader writer like in the legacy version. And then 4 C++ options, Boost being C++ libraries. So a map on a name and a map on a name and a unique ID, so 2 separate maps. And then Boost map, very similar to C++ maps on name, and a multi-index from Boost, and SQLite 3. SQLite 3, of course, is the internal Asterisk database backend storage, so that's already in the code base. That would be a great one to try out too. So, all right, what kind of tests did we run on these 7 contenders in the roundup? Well, there was a few tests. I'll go through each one briefly here. It was basically a bash script looping in the perf command around Asterisk, startup, run with perf, run all these tests, shut it down, see what the results were. So first created a bunch of channels, retrieved them by the exact channel name, and then a new function was added to get by unique ID, so that's some optimization there. And then look at the, you know, I mentioned get by name, kind of a dual purpose API. It's going to search for the unique ID if it doesn't find the name. Test E, I'll highlight a little bit. That's to retrieve by a name prefix match. So in a small office phone system, or any phone system really, you might be looking to see like, all right, extension 123, how many different calls are you involved with? I want to show something pretty on a display page. So you might see something in your, if you do a core show channels like PJSIP /123 hyphen some unique ID, and then another one that 123 hyphen a different unique ID. And so if you just know you want to look for 123, you want to collect all these. So that's the name prefix match lookups. And then look at the number of channels by extension context, and then iterate them over a couple of different ways, and then delete the channels. So that's the test A through I. Take a look here at the results. If you can see this graph, on the horizontal axis, it's up to 10,000 channels in the far right column. So we scaled this up from 0 to 10,000, and that's in thousands. We see the 10 there on the X, and on the Y, that's elapsed time in seconds. Not really as important like the raw figures on the timing here, but just to look at the comparison between these different contenders. So you can see AO2 Legacy, the worst performing. Actually, the worst performing was the Boost map index, which is just left completely off of here. But the AO2 Legacy and the optimized was a bit better at under 3 seconds for that test E. And then down near the bottom, you can see the C++ map by name and unique ID, and SQLite 3 almost at 0. So again, this is just, you know, pure unit performance testing, really testing the algorithms and how they compare with each other. This is the top 6. This is a look at the AO2 Legacy. You can see clearly in the lead. I think you can see that whole slide. Yep. So as the worst performer, almost 12 seconds, about 11 seconds to run through all those tests with 10,000 channels. Optimized a bit better, but still not. And then you can see down at the bottom, SQLite 3 and C++ map by name ID really kind of break away. So I'll zoom in on those 2 in particular. You can see that test for those 10,000 channels to run through all those tests with SQLite 3 was only about 300 milliseconds, not bad, and about 100 milliseconds for a C++ map by name ID. So, anybody want to harbor a guess who the winner might be or shout it out? No? Okay. No? Well, all right, hold on just a minute. This performance instructions, this is looking at CPU instruction on the left. This is a log graph. You can really see the slopes diverge for SQLite 3 and C++ map by name ID on the bottom there, and the rest of the contenders kind of really just shooting off into space. So that's a bit, that's the same 10,000 channels on the bottom on the x-axis, just presented logarithmic scale. So kind of compare the algorithms. And second place goes to SQLite 3. And the winner was C++ maps on name and unique ID. 10 times faster with 1,000 channels, 100 times faster with 10,000 channels. These are again the algorithmic tests, but if you want to try these out, we did try these out a little bit in some real world SIP examples in testing. It held up pretty well if you want to try it. 20.15 recent release of Asterisk about a month or so ago. You can start there on up to 22.5. The way to do it is to recompile Asterisk in the make menu config. You're going to want to enable this new algorithm. And then in the asterisk.conf file, so typically that's the asterisk.conf, you can pick between the two backends. Now, the rest of them we left out. I was rooting for SQLite 3 too, but it's not an option. It was only during testing, so you can just go ahead and pick between these and try it out yourself. Be great to get more feedback on how that's working in the real world, and some ideas for the future. We might be looking at more data structures, including other like AO2 containers, ASList, ASVector. So that is the results of the alternate channel storage backend roundup. I'll just give a quick pitch for Astricon. It's been in Florida for the past few springs during Valentine's Day. So bring your date, someplace warm. If it isn't quite official yet where that's going to be, and we'll be announcing that firmly soon, but that's where it's been. So feel free to keep an eye on the Asterisk webpage for that. Meet a member of the engineering team. Mike Bradeen gives a lot of great AI presentations often. Josh Kolp, head engineer, of course, borrowed a number of his thoughts in these slides, and he'll be there, hopefully. And Ben Ford, number developer, who's worked on a lot of improvements in multi-tenancy for Asterisk, which I didn't talk about today, but we have a number of developments there too. So on to my last slide as my presentation concludes. Are there any questions?
That's a good question, Chris. Are there any questions? We seem to be having a trend here, don't we, of not that many questions.
Very well. Yeah, excellent.
We'll go once. Where was this? Where? Ah, okay. That man is coming to you. Yeah. It's Nick behind you with the mic. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Just a couple topics that came up. I was wondering the geolocation for emergencies and stuff. Is that something that people in this room should be working on or more aware of? Because we have clients who might be sitting in the same spaces where Asterisk is sitting. Is that something that everyone's working on but me? Or that's really the first time I've heard of it. That's really cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so the Asterisk development work was, I think, 2022, 2023, that space. There was a number of regulations. There was Ray-Bombs Act that sort of focused on making this. So NG 911, I gave a presentation at the FreePBX World Summit in Denver a couple months ago and hope to turn that into a webinar and get the slides up because that session was not recorded, but went into more detail on some of the legal parts. I am not a lawyer, by the way. But
you're not a doctor either, are you, Chris?
Yes. I try to pretend to be an engineer some days, but I mean, most of in the open source office.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to go do homework on that in case I text things.
Yeah. So it's.
I would imagine that touches things inside of FreeSWITch. I'd imagine.
Sure. I mean,
I'm going to go do homework on that, and then the other one that has me curious is you have shake and stir things in there. Is there anything that Asterisk has done with Haya or First Orion or TNS in the area of call registries for spam calls and so forth? Is that touch Asterisk at all?
Yeah, I mean, that's more. I mean, like those. I don't know the specifics on the integration with those providers, but I mean, the framework is there to handle these identity headers and to sign calls if there's certificates in place. And so, I mean, a lot of carriers are doing this kind of like hosted signing type thing.
But
and so
people with FreeSWITCH or Asterisk, do they need to touch that too?
Well, I mean, if you'd like to get your calls through and your provider says you need to sign these, then you're going to have to deal with it if you want to continue to work in that capacity, or else offload the signing, upload your certificates to them, and then send like a normal invite and get it signed and sent on. So it really, I guess it's kind of carrier specific.
More things to research. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Glad I could help with that. So I've been working quite a bit on some of the NG911 stuff in particular, and what that looks like from like a free PBX perspective as well, and how we implement that, and trying to work that into more of like a module and make that a little bit easier. But there's also a lot of concerns that I have about the privacy information involved in like putting this location information somewhere. You're basically like uploading like all of this data for previously perhaps like unlisted addresses where somebody just happened to take a phone. I mean, it's a concern for like soft clients as well. So like, how do you handle that? And like, I think like sometimes encrypting it while it's at rest, and I don't just mean like at rest when the machine's off, but like while it's sitting there, and then decrypting on the fly. But I could really, we talk afterwards about that.
You're welcome. Just one other thing on that before we carry on, and that is, you remember Maxim from SippySoft? He's been to various ClueCons at one time or another. He runs OpenSippit, and OpenSippit has got its own YouTube channel where the meetings from previous occasions are recorded and available, and there are people from Asterisk and FreeSWITCH and OpenSIPs and possibly Kamailio all talking about stir shaken compliance and actually doing bake-offs and testing against each other. So that might be of interest for you. Okay, we've got time for one more question for Chris before we go to a break, if there is one. Oh, who was that? Yes, over here. Okay. From one of our vital PBX friends. Let's hand it over here.
Hello, this is Jose from Vital PBX. I have, two questions if you can answer both. Well, the first one is the ShankWeb socket already available in the latest version for ARI? And the second question is, do you have plans to natively integrate multi-tenancy on Asterisk? Because I see some changes in the latest version that you have like 10 parameter for PACIP, but that's just to show that information in the CDR, but it doesn't does too much.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a toolkit. So how you'd like to use that, I think is really up to you. There is now, will we see it like in other things like maybe Vital PBX or Free PBX wants to incorporate it? That'd be great. I think that work, though, just to establish that we could keep those things kind of separate with that new tenant ID to tag along with the call was important in that regard. And then I'm sorry, I missed your first question. You're the first. That was the second question.
It was about the wet sockets that you have, if they are already available in the latest version of Asterisk.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's a number of the examples in the Asterisk website, the examples directory in the GitHub repo. So that's gotten a lot of work lately in that regard. Asterisk itself is powering a lot of the AI work that Sangoma does, and it's very much geared towards that. There's some great articles on the blog too about how to handle some things like latency and pauses and stuff like that, and interjecting audio frames in order to handle those scenarios so it's a smoother conversation. I think that there's still a lot that's going to happen there, and then I've been pretty amazed by some of the audio socket stuff as well, and just this TCP channel. People have really run with that direction too. So yeah, there's still more, but yeah, it's definitely in and able to be tested. Those are the examples that'll run some of the latest versions. So I just started last year, and there's been a huge jump as well in improvements. So
great. Thank you very much, Chris. Let's give him a big thank you for coming to ClueCon.